All right, let's dive right into this explainer and meet the ultimate cognitive dynamic duo. We're going to completely level up your problem-solving toolkit today. We often hear that our brains are strictly divided, right? But we're looking at how two totally different ways of thinking actually team up, literally like superheroes, to conquer complex challenges. Think of this whole thing like a vibrant cognitive comic book. Our two heroes have completely different powers, but they absolutely need each other to save the day. So we're going to start by challenging a really stubborn stereotype. For decades, pop culture has pushed this idea that left brain logic and right brain creativity are just enemies, that they can't work together. We usually picture the creative thinker as this wild, zany, totally impractical person, while the critical thinker is, well, serious, analytical, and maybe a little bit boring. But treating them as enemies is a massive mistake. They aren't opposites at all. They're incredibly complementary skills. Let's officially meet our heroes. You can think of them as your classic buddy cop duo. On one hand, we have the generator. That's our creative thinking. The generator is wildly imaginative, always asking what if, and just churning out a huge volume of ideas. On the other hand, we have the evaluator, our critical thinking. The evaluator is super logically grounded, analytical, constantly asking, okay, but is this true? Or will this actually work? Totally different personalities for sure, but they're fighting the exact same villains of stagnation and complex problems. Part 1. Meet the generator. Fueling originality. Whenever you're staring at a blank page or a brand new problem, this is the hero you want to call first. The generator relies on what psychologists call divergent thinking. J.P. Guilford pioneered this concept, and it's basically all about widening the search space. It's that amazing cognitive ability to just break the rules, push past your mental limits, and brainstorm truly out-of-the-box ideas. When you're in divergent thinking mode, you aren't looking for one single correct answer. No way. You're looking for 100 possible answers, no matter how weird or crazy they might seem at first glance. And when it's out in the field, the generator uses E. Paul Torrance's famous framework to get the job done. It's actually highly structured, not just artsy. First up is fluency. Can you produce a massive number of ideas? Then flexibility. Can you think across totally different categories? Third is originality. Are your ideas actually unusual and unique? And finally, elaboration. Can you take a tiny seed of an idea and really flesh out the details? The generator uses all 4 of these powers to build this massive, diverse field of possibilities. Part 2. Meet the evaluator. Filtering for reality. Here's the thing. Wild ideas absolutely need grounding. And that is exactly where the evaluator comes in, using a totally different power called convergent thinking. Because, let's face it, having 100 out-of-the-box ideas is awesome, but if literally none of them work in the real world, you haven't actually solved your problem. So, instead of expanding possibilities, convergent thinking narrows them down. It applies some disciplined skepticism to organize, prioritize, and filter through all that wild stuff the generator came up with. The goal is to zero in on a single, optimal, highly practical response. It's the reality check every great innovation desperately needs. To pull this off, the evaluator rigorously tests ideas against some very specific intellectual standards. The Paul Elder critical thinking framework outlines these perfectly. When you evaluate an idea, you've got to ask, is it clear? Is the info accurate and precise? Is it actually relevant to the problem at hand? Does it hold together logically, without contradictions? And is it fair and free from bias? The evaluator uses these standards almost like a high-tech scanner to detect logical fallacies and expose the weak ideas. Seeing their contrasting personalities side by side really proves how different but incredibly complementary they are. Just look at their core dispositions. The creative modality thrives on curiosity, playfulness, and intellectual risk-taking. It absolutely loves ambiguity. But the critical modality, that relies on skepticism, precision, and logical consistency. One widens the search space, the other narrows the options. You can instantly see why you need both mindsets firing to function at a really high level. Part 3. The team up. Problem-solving synergy. Defeating the villain of a really complex challenge requires a complete problem-solving loop. It's a constant oscillation, like a back-and-forth dance between both of these cognitive modes. Step 1 is understanding. That's using critical thinking to analyze data and clarify what the problem actually is. Step 2 is idea generation. Bring in the generator to use divergent thinking and produce a ton of unusual ideas. And step 3 is preparation. Bring the evaluator back in to use convergent thinking, refine the best solutions, and actually plan how to implement them. They literally take turns, each doing what they do best. I love this quote from our sources because it perfectly captures why you need this synergy. Without it, you are doomed to fail. Think about it. If you only use critical thinking, you focus way too much,
leaving you with too few possibilities, and you'll just end up doing things the old way. But if you only use creative thinking, you're going to end up with a pile of wildly impractical ideas that never see the light of day. You have to generate options, and then you have to focus your thinking. It's a package deal.
Part 4. The training montage. Building a balanced mind.
Just like real superheroes, this dynamic duo needs a training montage to build a highly balanced and resilient mind. A fantastic daily exercise for this is the See, Think, Wonder routine from Harvard Project Zero. Educators use this a lot to stimulate curiosity, but let me tell you, it works wonders for professionals and lifelong learners too. It essentially forces your brain to systematically walk through different cognitive steps when you're looking at new information, a problem, or even just a piece of art. Notice how this routine brilliantly structures the team up. When you start with I see, you're forced to use objective, critical observation. You're just laying out the raw facts. But then it naturally transitions to I wonder, which instantly sparks those imaginative, out-of-the-box questions. It seamlessly hands the baton from the evaluator right over to the generator, proving that critical observation is actually the perfect launching pad for creative exploration.
Part 5. Conclusion. Unleashing the dynamic duo.
The days of classifying yourself as purely a creative type or purely a logical type are officially over. Treating these skills as a dynamic duo is the ultimate secret to overcoming modern, complex challenges. You absolutely need the generator's divergent thinking to break boundaries and imagine new worlds. And you equally need the evaluator's convergent thinking to test those visions against reality, to make sure they actually work. True innovation just doesn't happen in a vacuum. It requires solutions that are both highly original and perfectly practical. We all face massive, tangled challenges in our lives and our work. So as you step out today, I want you to ask yourself, are you attacking your problems with just half your brain? It is time to unleash your inner generator and evaluator. Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer, and I really can't wait to see what you create and critically evaluate next.